Man, basketball fans, particularly, I guess, Atlanta Hawks fans, right? Appreciate everybody for joining me for episode 59. This is our Hawk Talk segment, part of the show. And glad that you guys are joining me. You know what this is, unless you've been living under a rock. That would be none other than Tate's Take the Podcast. Subscribe anywhere you find your favorite podcast. And remember to follow along per usual on social media, all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS. As you know, that is where basketball lives. Now, I'm tired of people blowing up my phone because I've been getting a lot of folks, hey, man, Tate, yo, I need to see what's going on with these Hawks, dude. I mean, listen, I'm really frustrated. The Mavericks game and so forth, a lot going on. I said, listen, be patient. I promise you, patience is a virtue in 2020-2021 season. I got my dude coming on with us. He's going to have all the answers for you guys as it relates to the Atlanta Hawks. So without further ado, let me get ready to bring my dude up, man, because it's been I've been trying to get this dude to come on for quite some time, and I know we've been trying to work. He's super busy, obviously, covering the team and so forth. So I want to make sure that I do the right thing and make sure that it's not a disservice to him and his time. So that would be none other than Chris Kirschner, Atlanta Hawks beat reporter from The Athletic. Remember to give him a follow on Twitter. This dude, you Atlanta Hawks fans, you ain't following him. You stuck in 2020, man. That's not the way to be. At Chris Kirschner, that is at Chris Kirschner on social media. First and foremost, Chris, man, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Man, I'm okay. I'm a little frustrated, like much of the fan base is for the Atlanta Hawks, but nonetheless, I could be doing better. But you know, I don't want to make this about me and all the things that I got going on. Let's talk about this Atlanta Hawks team, man, and let's dive right into that. And I think one of my biggest things is, first of all, that this is a team that has lost now 4 of the last 5. Probably as simple as I could probably put it. Okay, I want to know what's going on with this team, because I feel like the only consistency that we've seen out of this team is that they have been consistently inconsistent. They got off on a nice little streak coming right out the gate, grabbing a lot of people's attention in a year that probably to a lot of fans felt like it was a year later than what they expected. And then, you know, different things happened on and off the court, and then they went on another little run. Now they're not doing so hot. What's happening with the team, man? What's going on?
Well, I think they're just dealing with a lot of injuries right now. You know, they lost DeAndre Hunter. He's going to be out for 7 to 10 weeks, and Hunter really emerged in the second season with the Hawks. I thought for the most part his rookie season was up and down, and he just absolutely exploded this year, and losing him is definitely a blow. And then when you just look at the team as a whole, they spent so much money in free agency, and most of those guys haven't really produced much of anything. And these guys that they went out and got, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Danilo Gallinari, Rajon Rondo, Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn hasn't played a second yet for the Hawks as he's recovering from ankle surgery. But the Hawks got these guys to produce at a high level, and we haven't seen that yet. For what we've seen so far, the Hawks are 11-13, the 8th seed right now in the Eastern Conference. But from what we've seen, it's mostly been the young guys who have been carrying this team. Trae Young is playing at an all-star level. John Collins is playing at an all-star level. And then you have other guys sprinkled in. Kevin Huerter, I think, has played well. Cam Reddish, he has struggled pretty severely, in my opinion. So that's really the reason for where the Hawks are at right now. They're 11-13. And like you said, the one thing that they've been is consistently inconsistent, which is what we've seen for the most part this season.
You know what? One of the things that you mentioned, and obviously you're ahead of the curve quite a bit. We're talking about some of these injuries. I do want to ask you about the injury update in general. First of all, what are you hearing in terms of guys that we can expect to maybe play soon? Maybe some of the guys that will be out as far as the game on tomorrow against San Antonio.
Yeah, so for the most part, the injury report for tomorrow is clean. I mean, you have the regulars who are going to be out: Chris Dunn and Bogdan Bogdanovic and DeAndre Hunter. They're going to be out, and they're going to be out for at least a couple more weeks. And then Rajon Rondo is also out for tomorrow's game against the Spurs with low back pain. But even still, it's like if Rondo is available, I don't know how much of a difference he's going to make at this point of his career. I did think that the signing of Rondo was curious, in my opinion, just because of the fact that for several seasons now, Rondo hasn't done much of anything in the regular season. He was obviously great in the postseason for the Lakers last year. Obviously, the Lakers won the championship, and he was a key piece. But from what we've seen over the past few years, I don't know what Rondo brings on the court anymore in the regular season. But for the other three guys, it's tough that they've had to deal with these injuries, especially Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic is expected to be the starting shooting guard alongside Trae Young in the backcourt. He's only played 9 games, and in those 9 games, he was mainly coming off the bench. So the game he got hurt, he actually finally got into the starting rotation and replaced Cam Reddish. So when he's back, I would expect him to, when he's back and healthy, I should say, and not on a minutes restriction, because as you and I know, they do minutes restrictions for these guys when they come back, and it's usually a few games before they're off that minutes restriction. But when he is fully healthy and back, I would believe that he's going to be back in the starting rotation.
One of the things that you mentioned, being one of them, being Rajon Rondo, being one of the players, I've always been the person, and the people who have listened to me on this platform consistently have heard me say I was always curious, had an asterisk with acquiring Rajon Rondo in the sense of which Rondo are we going to get? Are we going to get the Lakers and Celtics Rondo, or are we going to get the Pelicans and Kings Rondo? And I got a good feeling as to what answer, that there would be to that question. But yet I want to give the benefit of the doubt and let it play out. Now, another player sticking right here within the injury update is what kind of effect do you think that DeAndre Hunter has had on this team, and even not having him right now on this team? Because coming into the season, I kind of felt like between he and Reddish and Herter that there wasn't like very much separation between those guys. Well, obviously that looks a bit different now with the season cranking up, and from what we've seen over the course of 24 odd games or something right within that range. The effect that this team has felt from him not being around, how do you think that it looks so much different, and how much are injuries really to blame with what we're seeing from the Hawks right now?
Well, I think the injuries that they've sustained are a big reason why they are 11-13. I think if they were healthy for the most part, they would be much better. I think it's a testament to the growth that the young players have shown so far this season, that they actually are 11-13, because what we saw last year with pretty much the guys who were producing for the Hawks this year, they won 20 games last year. They were 20-47, had the 4th worst record. This year, they're in the playoff mix because they've collectively gotten better. So I think when you look at Hunter specifically, I look at a game like last night against Dallas. Especially in the 4th quarter, it was mostly the perimeter guys who were torching the Hawks. Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr. Luka was Luka. Luka was good. But if you have someone like DeAndre Hunter out there, you have another trusted defender who could stop one of these perimeter players. Last night, you don't have that. You have Danilo Gallinari. Gallinari hasn't been a good defender for his entire career. He can't stop anybody at this point of his career. You have Trae Young. Trae Young is not a good defender, and he was getting torched defensively last night by Jalen Brunson. So when you have someone like Hunter on the floor, it kind of eases the pressure off of some of the other guys who are out there, because you have someone who could lock down a Luka or Brunson or Hardaway. Hardaway last night was hot in the 4th quarter. So I think that loss in particular is going to be the one that is felt the hardest over these next several weeks. And again, he's going to miss at least 7 to 10 weeks. That's a long time. So when he's going to be out, you have to have guys like Reddish, Herter, Gallinari, Tony Snell. We've seen a little bit. Those guys are going to have to pick up the slack. And from what we've seen so far, there's a big difference in the gap between talent as compared to Hunter and the guys that I just mentioned. So I'm really interested to see how that's going to turn out for the Hawks, because I really do think it is a significant blow to have Hunter, with the way he was playing, be out for several weeks now.
If we assume, and I know that this is really a hard call to make and maybe answer a question to answer rather, but if we are talking about the Hawks having a full bill of health, or for the most part, because I'm not ever sure if a team ever has like a completely full bill of health throughout the duration of a season, how close to being the team that maybe the national media and Hawks Nation have expected to see? How close are we to seeing that team formulate in the event that we're not talking about injury issues?
I think if the Hawks were fully healthy, and like you said, it's hard to have a team that's fully healthy and not have someone on the injury report in some way. But if they've been mostly healthy this season, I think with the way that they played, again, they were the 6th seed just a few games ago. Like you mentioned at the top, they've lost a couple here in a row. And outside of the Toronto game, I think it's 4 or 5. You said? I think it's 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
But so for them, if they've been mostly healthy, I think there's not a doubt in my mind that they would be one of the top 4 teams in the East right now, just because they have the depth, they have the talent now on the roster. And if those guys were playing at the levels we've seen them play over these past few years, guys like Bogdanovich, Gallinari, if Rondo was even just a little bit better, I think that there's no doubt that the Hawks would have been one of the top teams in the East. The national media would have been, taking note of that. But as it stands now, they're going to be a team that is going to be struggling at the bottom of the Eastern Conference as far as playoff seedings go. This year is different with the play-in tournament. They're carrying that over from last year when teams were going to Orlando to play in the bubble. So I think for the Hawks, coming into the season, I still thought that they just didn't have the experience overall to compete at a high level. But I've been impressed with the way they've played in spite of these injuries. As of now, I still think that the Hawks have enough talent to be a playoff team. It's just the fact that I think when the end of the season rolls around, I think that they're going to be in that play-in tournament and have to win their way into actually making it into the actual playoffs.
The Mavericks clipped the Hawks' wings in the Big D. I know that sounds kind of weird, but 118 to 117. Trae Young, 25 points, 15 assists, 7 rebounds. Luka, who I'm so tired of this whole comparison thing, but I get it. You're gonna always be tied together because of the draft situation. Luka, 28 points, another triple double, 10 rebounds and 10 assists. Go figure. I guess shocker, right? I want to get ready to play a clip here for you, and it obviously relates and. Because you had the opportunity to, as I'm trying to figure out, okay, here we go, share screen. You had the opportunity in the post-game press conference yesterday to talk to Trae. And so I definitely want to see what kind of responses and so forth that you had a chance to get from him. But really quickly, I just want to share the screen with the folks so that they can have an opportunity to see exactly what we're about to talk about right now in regards to the last play from last night. So as I'm doing this now, boom, boom. Not sure if you can see this over there on your side.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and roll it. All right, let's stop sharing the screen there for a second, because one thing I promise you that I won't do is I won't repeat the words that I feel like came out of Trae Young's mouth last night. I don't want to do that, but you did have the opportunity, as I said in the post-game press conference, to ask him about the officiating and exactly what took place on that last call. What information did you receive from Trae?
Well, I mean, he clearly felt that a foul had been committed when Willie Cauley-Stein ran him over. He said that, afterwards, when he fell to the ground, he made eye contact with the ref. The ref didn't do anything. The play continued. And, when Trae falls to the ground, it kind of blows up the play that the Hawks had designed for the end of game situation. So Trae said afterwards that the play is designed for him to draw a bit of contact, obviously not get run over, but draw a little bit of contact, slip out toward the top of the key, catch the ball, and make a play from that point. So after he gets erased from the play effectively, Kevin Herter, who's the inbounds passer, he has one fewer decision when it comes to who should he pass the ball to. Mm-hmm. At first, Kevin also spoke with the media last night, and he said that his first option is, trying to get John Collins the ball at the rim. From my perspective, I'm not in the building. I'm not traveling with the team this year. But from on TV, it looked like John had a little bit of space, and John actually said afterwards that he felt he was open. It is a tough play, though. Mm-hmm. Again, these guys are NBA players, so maybe it's not as hard of a play as I'm thinking. But if Herter would have threw it up to John might have had a good look at it, and the Hawks could have won the game that way. But I know a lot of focus was on this play last night, and a lot of Hawks fans were mad and upset over the non-foul call. My opinion, the Hawks shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. They had a 13-point lead with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. They had a 9-point lead at the start of the fourth quarter. They had played well, really, all game up until the fourth quarter. I thought they were in control for the most part. I really thought that, especially midway through that third quarter, I thought the game was going to be wrapped up just because of the way Collins was playing. Collins was absolutely unstoppable last night. I feel like if they would have just fed Collins last night, he could have got over 40 points pretty easily, just because there was nobody. Dallas doesn't have the personnel really to match up with him well. So I think with the way they were playing, I do feel that they should have won easily, but as we saw, they collapsed, and a lot of the focus came on that final play. Yes, it's one play. Yes, it could have gone either way. I think what we've seen over several years now watching the NBA is refs are going to be very, very hesitant in those final few seconds, whether it's right or wrong, to call a foul on a play like that. Mm-hmm. When the team inbounding the ball is down one, if they call the foul, Trae gets to the free throw line with the chance to tie the game, and then they do the play all over again. I just feel like it's so difficult to rely on the refs to call a foul in that situation. It's the same thing with like the NFL when teams throw Hail Marys. You could probably call pass interference on every single Hail Mary play.
Yeah.
The refs don't call it. It's the same situation at the end of games in the NBA. It's just a different officiated game, whether it's right or wrong. But in my opinion, I'm of the opinion that the call could have gone either way. I wouldn't have, been up in arms with any outcome that the refs decided. And it's also my opinion that they shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. They should have won that game pretty handedly.
I'm not sure that I could have said it much better than you did. In the locker room right now, Chris Kirschner Atlanta Hawks beat reporter from The Athletic, and the man with all the hair that I'm very jealous and envious of. Find him on Twitter at Chris Kirschner. That is at Chris Kirschner, ChrisKirschner. I'm a pretty good speller, dude, but I tell you what, I had to look that one up because that's just one of those last names. And I'm like, does this one come before the? Yeah, so I had to do that type of deal. Let's look forward, move forward rather, towards what's coming up for this team. Tomorrow night, if you're hearing this a little late, then it might be tonight if you're hearing this on tomorrow. But with today being Thursday the 11th, Friday night against San Antonio, currently 14-11 overall, 6th in the West. Follow that up in a back-to-back on Saturday versus the Pacers at home, who's 12-13 and tied for 5th in the East, and then closing out the third of 3 games on Monday on the road at the Knicks, who's 11-15 overall and are 9th in the East, which ironically enough, I guess they're getting ready for, I guess the Hawks will be the first game of 3 of a, the Knicks would be a first game of 3 preparing for a 3-game West Coast road trip. That Knicks matchup will be followed up by the Celtics twice, I guess, in a back-to-back situation. So if it's you, what exactly do you feel like needs to be turned around before they get to this point? I mean, they're running off of a lot of emotion, maybe some frustration in there. Some guys seem to be on board, maybe more than other guys. Some guys just optically appear to look more checked into the game than other guys. And that's just more of my take, more so than anything. What do you say that these guys really need to put together that we should look forward to more than anything, starting more so with the game on tomorrow night against the Spurs?
I mean, I think it's what we've been talking about, especially at the start, is consistency. There are some nights where the Hawks are shooting over 40% from 3, and then there are nights where they're shooting under 20% from 3, and it's not a pretty product to watch on the floor. I think if they end up shooting well, they can beat these teams. The Spurs aren't, a team that's known for shooting. So if the Hawks could put up some threes Friday night, I think they can win. I do think that San Antonio is one of those teams, as we've seen now for over 2 decades, that Popovich has been the coach. They're a tough team no matter who's on their roster, no matter what style of play that they have. They're just a team that's well coached, well-oiled machine. DeMar DeRozan's not a 3-point shooter, and where the league's at right now, some people might call him a dinosaur, but he's been playing so well this season for San Antonio. But for the Hawks specifically, I just think that if they can shoot well, and get some sort of production from guys like Reddish, who again has struggled. If Reddish can get going, if guys like Kevin Huerter continue to shoot well, he's shot over 50% from 3 in the past 5 games now. He hasn't really been talked about much at all. I think he's playing at a really, really high level and someone who's been a little overlooked in my opinion, just with all the additions that the Hawks obviously brought in. But if they can shoot well and if they can defend in the fourth quarter and lock in. So I wrote a story last night after the game because it's been a trend that I've noticed, is that in the fourth quarter, the Hawks are just like a different team. They're just like, they're not a good team in the fourth quarter. And that's a sign of a young, inexperienced squad. A team that can't perform in the fourth quarter just shows inexperience. They don't know how to close out games and win games. Again, last night is a perfect example of that. A good team wins, no doubt. They're up 9. They have momentum. They've been playing very well throughout. And then they look like a team that we do not recognize from quarters 1, 2, and 3. So I think if they can turn it around, especially in these next few games, and these are some important games coming up, with the back-to-back on Friday and Saturday, especially that Pacers game, because I think that come the end of the season, the Pacers are going to be one of probably 3 teams that the Hawks are competing for to potentially not be in the play-in tournament and be a top 6 seed if they can get there. I think this Pacers game is really important. And it's unfortunate that is on the second night of a back-to-back. Teams just don't have the gas. Yeah, teams just don't have the gas usually on a second night of a back-to-back. But I do think that for the Hawks moving forward, they just have to just lock in the fourth quarter and close games out. If they can do that, I think they're going to be fine moving forward.
What's the deal with Cam Reddish, man? I mean, look, I'm trying to put my finger on it. I know I'm not the only person. It just appears to be more of a mental thing. I'm not sure exactly, obviously, or I'd have all the answers and I wouldn't be bringing Chris Kirschner on. But it just appears to be mental. I don't know if it's a confidence thing per se. You get some games that it's like, wow, he looks great. And then there's some games where it's like, are they playing 5-on-4 out there? I mean, there was the first half of the season that kind of had you feeling the latter way that I just explained. And then, there was the second half of the season that was like, this is kind of what we've been looking forward to. And then this year has kind of been like, depending on whichever way the wind blows, what day is it this week? It's apples and oranges. It's night and day. What's the best way for you to be able to explain what's happening with Cam Reddish right now and just his inconsistencies?
I think Cam is one of those guys that if he starts a game 0-2, he misses his first 2 shots, it just changes the trajectory of that game. I mean, he's just one of those guys, like you can see, especially like in person, when he's missing a shot and the camera's not on him, like you can see when he's walking down with his head down and just like not fully engaged. He makes his first 2 shots and it's just a totally different story for the game, especially on offense. So I do think it's a little bit of a confidence thing. You talk to everybody in the organization and they say like Cam has all the confidence in the world. I mean, I remember talking to him last year at the start of his rookie season and, he struggled pretty severely. And he told me straight up, like, I'm still a bucket. So like the confidence is there. It's just a matter of like, can he actually put that into being a good offensive player? And so far he's not there yet. I think with him, he is 21 years old. He's only a few years out of high school. I mean, it's way too early to like write him off or anything like
Speculate.
that. I do think that, especially like you mentioned in that second half last season, we saw the flashes. Like we saw the potential that he has offensively. It's just a matter of like, can he actually put it together for 3, 4, 5, 10 games in a row? And so far he hasn't been able to do that. The one thing about it is that for him, he's not going to have the offensive opportunities that Trey has, that John has when Bogdanovich is back. He's not going to have the same opportunities to get shots up. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, if he can make his first 2 shots and get in the zone and be confident, he's a good player. But if he misses those first couple shots, it just seems like it derails the rest of the night, and he tries to force things. He feels like when he gets the ball, he has to make a play when he's just not that player. Like, the Hawks don't need him to take over games. That's not why they drafted him. They drafted him to play good defense, which I think he's done, and make spot-up shots. They didn't draft him to attack the rim and go crazy and spin in the lane and try to make circus plays, which is what we've seen over 2 years now. They don't need that. So I think if he can lock in and just slow down, just let the game come to him, be patient, take advantage of the shots that you get instead of trying to force things, I think he's going to be much better off. But sometimes it just takes time for these young guys to settle in and be confident with that, because a lot of times the young players want to get their own and try and make plays and make it a point to say, hey, like, this is why you guys drafted me with a top 10 pick. But I think Lloyd has said it several times over the past few weeks, is that they're trying to rein him in and just let him be calmer, let the game come to him, and I think he's going to be better off.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think one of the things I heard Lloyd say was mention something about being fully engaged, that being one of them. And then another piece is and of course, Lloyd didn't say this. I guess this is just Deshaun Tate talking, but I feel like that confidence level sometimes and or the body language at times, like you were talking about with the head down and so forth. It's at a level zero, if I'm just being honest. But when you get the fully engaged defensive intensity Cam Reddish and confident guy, I mean, he looks like a totally different player, to your point. And so I definitely agree with you and couldn't agree with you very much more than that. Now, if we just have 120 more seconds with you, because I know you're really busy and you got things going on, I would like to bring you into our a special part of our Hawk Talk segment, and it's called Quick Release. So it is essentially, maybe not completely rapid fire, but along those lines, where I'll just ask you a few questions and they're pretty much brief or yes or no answers or whatever, what have you. Feel free to elaborate if you will. You good with that?
I'm good.
All right, sounds good. Let's start off with this part. Excuse me. This has been something that has been, obviously ongoing over the course of the last few days. Mark Cuban has been a part of it, so forth. And I'm just kind of curious. When it comes to this controversy within the national anthem, what side is Chris Kirschner on?
There's no reason to play the anthem before sporting events. There's no need. It's unnecessary. I think the side that is for it probably feels that you should be respecting the military and everyone else that makes this country great. But there's no reason to play the anthem. Like if you have a 9-to-5 job, they're not playing the national anthem before the start of the workday. So why are we doing it at sporting events? So I just don't feel the need to play it before game 47 Hawks Magic. Like, what is the point there? So I don't think it's a controversial stance that Mark Cuban did for the Mavericks in not playing the anthem. Obviously, the NBA decided that they wanted every single team to play it. So that's what Cuban, he didn't have a choice at that point because the NBA stepped in and said, you have to play it.
Now, you had the opportunity, as I bring this up, Chris, you had the opportunity. I'm so jealous of you because I haven't done it yet. Wait till I talk to Rob Parker because he owes me some wings. You had the opportunity. I'm so envious of you, dude. You had the chance to go. You went to Magic. Am I correct?
I did go to Magic.
You got some of the some of the Lou Will lemon peppers. I definitely want to. I need to know exactly what that experience was like in terms of the taste of the wings itself. But the All-Star game and All-Star weekend is coming here on the 7th, as you can see at the bottom on the ticker, in Atlanta, in a little less than a month from now. Do you think that that's considering everything that's going on right now as far as COVID, do you think that that's a good or a bad idea? But first, tell me about those lemon pepper wings.
Yeah, I mean, they're some of the best wings that I've had. I've been here in Atlanta for 7 years now. They're definitely up there as far as some of the best ones that I've had. I think in regards to the All-Star game, I think it's absolutely pointless to have an All-Star game this season. I think Karl Anthony Towns said it best, last night. He just recovered from COVID. He's had several of his family members die from COVID already, including his mom. Just watching some of Towns' press conferences this season, they're heartbreaking. And it's kind of a slap in the face that the NBA decides that they are going to have an All-Star game. I mean, you and I both know it's at the end of the day, it's about money. Mm-hmm. It's all about money. Mm-hmm. The All-Star game is a big draw for cable. It's a big draw for sponsorships. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of money that's going to be poured into the league if they
it sounds like the NCAA tournament almost.
Essentially, yeah, you're right. Because all of it is about money. At the end of the day, they can say that they care about player health and all that, but you're going to have how many people make it? 15, I think, make the All-Star team, each conference, so 30 players. These guys can't even hug after the games, and you're going to intertwine Trae Young and Bradley Beal, who's in Washington. They're going to be on the same court together. I just don't understand how that's going to work. And then once they're finished, then they have to probably quarantine for a couple of days, I would assume, and go about their business. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just the league is saying that player health and player safety is so important, yet they're going to bring players from around the country to come in and be on the court at the same time, quarantine, be without their families during a stretch that they probably could be with them. And they're not going to be able to, because they're likely not going to be able to bring them to Atlanta. So it's just, I don't know. In my opinion, it's a bad look for the NBA to have the All-Star game, because they said at the beginning that they were just going to name the teams and not have a game, and they changed their mind because obviously money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, I feel like if there was going to be an All-Star game, maybe Salt Lake City or somewhere else. Atlanta, probably not the place to be wanting to do it in the event of a pandemic with everything. Yeah, I mean, you expect it for these guys to really not go out in Atlanta being all about nightlife and entertainment and gentlemen's clubs and so forth. I hope they got plenty of those lemon pepper wings ready for that particular weekend, because those cooks in the back are gonna be busy, that's for sure. Real quick, let me ask you this, speaking of those wings, because you see I'm all about those wings. You a flats or a drums guy?
I'm a flats guy. I've been a flats guy. But the thing is I don't discriminate. I will eat drums, I will eat flats, I will eat boneless, I will eat tenders. It doesn't matter. Any kind of chicken that you place in front of me, I'm going to eat it.
Ranch or blue cheese?
So I'm neither, honestly.
Really?
I don't dip my wings in ranch or blue cheese. I usually I'm a lemon pepper guy, just straight up. Lemon pepper with some heat. That's what I usually get, but I'm not a ranch or blue cheese guy. Never have been.
You more drums? Are you more dry rub or wet wings, or it doesn't matter either?
It doesn't matter. I definitely, if there's a good dry rub, especially lemon pepper, I would prefer that over wet. But sometimes the lemon pepper is just not enough, and you need some sort of wetness to it. So it just depends on the wing itself.
Man, I feel like we might be related, man, because you know what? I like my flats. I like them a little on the crispier side. My dry rub, lemon pepper, somebody, man. I'm excited. I can't wait to go. I can't wait till this pandemic is over with and Rob Parker can come to town and make up on his bet. But let me get, and I just got a couple more of them for you here. And I'm not sure if you heard this, Chris, so I'm not trying to be the person throwing news out there. I just heard of it yesterday by some pretty credible people. Obviously, nothing's a done deal, but I just want to see if you've heard of this quite yet. I don't know how much interest there was or has been. Maybe you can speak on it, but I just kind of want to get your idea on whether you would entertain something like this, John Collins to the Dallas Mavericks. Me personally, I wouldn't be trying to do those guys any more favors, rather.
Yeah, I mean, for Collins and the Mavs. So Collins is going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season. He's free to sign an offer sheet with whatever team he wants to. Dallas is going to be one of those teams that's likely going to be aggressive in free agency, depending on if they renounce the rights to Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Richardson. Both those guys are going to be free agents. If they renounce both of their rights to those guys, Dallas will have over $30 million in cap space. And Dallas was gearing up this summer to potentially make an offer at Giannis. Giannis ends up re-signing with Milwaukee, so Giannis is not a free agent anymore. So Dallas is going to have money to spend. And after the extensions that went through before the start of the season, some of the guys that a lot of these teams were potentially wanting to covet in free agency are just no longer free agents, and John is now one of the best free agents. And John makes a ton of sense for what Dallas needs in the front court. It would not surprise me at all if Dallas ended up offering significant money to John in free agency. John ends up signing an offer sheet with Dallas, and then it's up to the Hawks if they want to match it or not. With the way John has played this season, I would strongly, if I was Travis Schlenk, the general manager, it's hard losing someone with his ability. He plays so well with Trey. The tandem you could have building for the future with John and Trey is tremendous. So I do feel like, when we're talking in several months and free agency rolls around, I think that the Hawks definitely do need to try and keep John long term, just because of, he's growing into being one of the best young power forwards in the game.
Just three more questions for you, I promise, and we're going to get you out of here. One of them being, we talked about probably about 6 recent additions to this team. Who stood out to you kind of like a sore thumb as, if not the most valuable asset, but a very good valuable asset that you think could be on this team long term, or even if not, just somebody that you've seen of the new additions that has stood out to you with some of their recent play?
I mean, none of the free agents, honestly. I think if we're talking about new additions, I mean, he's technically not a new addition because he was on the team in February, but he didn't play. But Clint Capela has played well, especially on defense. He's been such a big revelation for the Hawks, especially what they were dealing with last year at the center position with Damian Jones, Bruno Fernando, Alex Len, Dwayne Dedmon. Capela has just been so good on that end of the floor, blocking shots, getting rebounds, anchoring the guys, being the voice in the middle of the defense on that side of the floor. So if I were to say, which new addition's done the best, I mean, technically he's not a new addition, but this is the first year he's played with them, so I would go with Capela.
Yeah, that one would be that one was pretty much an easy answer, if you will. Second to last question. If I give you, I like to call it chalkboard now. I used to call it, if I gave you a dry erase marker and a dry erase board, but I feel, but I'm old. So I'm going to still stick with the chalkboard. I'm sure the millennials have no idea what I'm talking about. If I gave you a piece of chalk and a chalkboard and told you to give what you believe is because I know how close you are to this. So your message to Hawks fans right now, I can only imagine how frustrated they are on today, the 11th of February, 2021. What would you write down on that chalkboard to those Hawks fans?
I would say be patient and that the future, I think, is bright. I mean, they have several young pieces who we've seen grow. Trey's continuing to grow. John's continuing to grow. DeAndre's continuing to grow. Kevin's continuing to grow. Cam, he has the potential to, be one of those guys one day who's really good. They have, they have the contracts that if they wanted to make a big splashy trade, they can do so. They have all their draft picks moving forward. So I do think that the Hawks are just well positioned for future success, just with the way the roster is currently constructed. So I would just say be patient. Yes, it's going to, there's always growing pains with these young teams. The Hawks are no different. The Hawks are no different than these teams that we've seen go through a rebuild and slowly build up that process to get back to relevancy and making the playoffs. So that would be my message, is be patient. I do think that the Hawks are well positioned for future success.
I've seen you mention once or twice that you're not a Hawks fan. Who is Chris Kirschner a fan of? Is there a team that you grew up a fan of? Are you a diehard fan of a team? Let's go NBA and college basketball, since I love my college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New York City, so I grew up a Knicks fan. Okay. I'm not a Knicks fan anymore, just because of the fact that I do cover the NBA and it's my job to be unbiased. I know sometimes fans don't understand that a reporter's job is to provide unbiased coverage. I'm not a Hawks fan. I don't care if they win. I don't care if they lose. It would be great to cover a team that does well and makes the playoffs and, is relevant nationally, because that helps me out professionally.
Sure.
I would much rather cover a team that went 82-0 rather than 0-82. It's just, that's just business sense. So, I would just say that, I grew up a Knicks fan. I'm not really a Knicks fan. I'm not a Knicks fan anymore. I just like the NBA in general. I think it's a fun league, especially to cover from a reporter's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But for college, I mean, I went to the University of Florida. My degree is right back there.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So I'm definitely a Gators fan. Love my Gators. Will always support my Gators until the day I die.
Okay, hopefully we'll get a chance to see those Gators in the NCAA tournament in the event that there's going to be an NCAA tournament. Chris Kirschner and Let Hawks beat reporter from The Athletic. Man, listen, dude is coming. He's got it all right here. It's all between the ears. He's in all the happenings that's going on here in Atlanta in terms of the Hawks, and I'm really, really appreciative for you taking out the time. I know we've been trying to get this thing going for quite some time, but even being overly patient and spending a little bit of extra time with me during our quick release segment. So remember to give him a follow on Twitter at Chris Kirschner. That is IRSCHNER, KIRSCHNER. And I do appreciate you for coming on, man. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No doubt. Chris Kirschner, everybody. Appreciate him for gracing us with his presence and coming on and joining us. And I hope that you guys got the answers that you were looking for, all the questions. So hopefully you guys can stop blowing my phone up. Remember to subscribe anywhere that you find your favorite podcast: iTunes, Google Podcasts, Red Circle, Spotify, Stitcher, the whole nine. Also follow along on social media at Tate's Take Hoops. That is TATESTAKEHOOPS hashtag where basketball lives. Hey, we've got tomorrow. Don't forget, let's go 7:30 that is Eastern Standard Time. My dude Clark Kellogg going to be with us talking some Big Ten, Ohio State college basketball all across the board, CBS analysts as well. So I appreciate everybody for checking us out. Remember that you can also leave a review. Also leave up to a 5-star rating, if you will, on the Tate's Take podcast. Just hover over that little magnifying glass in the search box. That's where you'll find Tate's Take. And be sure to share it along with family, with friends, with enemies, with your mamas, with your baby mamas, whoever and whatever, anywhere and anything in between. Make sure that you do that. Appreciate everybody for joining us. I'll see you guys sometime within the next 24 hours. In a minute.